And Caroline, now I would say let's dive right into the Bay of Silence. I hope you're not burned out on talking about this movie yet.
No, no, not at all. I could talk about this movie forever. It's very different when you've written something and you've produced it. And I lead produced this actually. So my producer credit is a little bit more than what people think, in that I do feel a personal responsibility for this film, and I am the last one standing. I'm the first one to stand up when we started it, and I'm the last one standing because I'm now doing the marketing and distribution, and it's me. I sign everything, but I, have wonderful investors and wonderful senior lenders, and we have, of course, the British tax credit, and we have the Netherlands Film Fund, and we got the Liguria Film Fund, and four fantastic investors as well, all of whom American. So it was all kind of done properly, like a proper independent film, but it's not a studio movie, and we are pushing it out in the time of COVID. And it's a beautiful film. I love my actors so much. I am so grateful to Claes Bang and to Olga Kurilenko and to Brian Cox, Alice Krieger, Assad Boab, the beautiful twins, the Butina Savers, Shalisha James Davis. We just had such lovely people. And our director, Paula van der Oost, and brilliant DP, Guido van Gennep, and of course my composer, John Swihart. I can go on forever. And they all just believed in it with me because I felt if I was going to write my first film and spend all this time making it, I wanted to make a film that I would hope would really resonate with people and would last, and that I, of course, could be proud of, and was a film that wasn't easy, and is about important subjects that we are part of the national conversation even now. So it is about sexual trauma, it is about abuse, it is about the death of a child, it's about guilt, it's about loss, it's about grief. It's got some tough subjects in it, but it's also a love story. And I really loved the book, The Bay of Silence, which is written from two people's point of view and is about mental health as well. It just stayed with me for many years. And I met Lisa, the writer, and said to her, I do believe there's a film here. You write so visually, and this central moment, the central episode of the death of the child and the decision he makes regarding that, which is something that I think we can all relate to, is haunting. And will you give me the chance to maybe write something? But I think it has to be a thriller. I think it has to be a mystery thriller in some way, because a drama is hard to sell. And I think you've got some Hitchcock elements in this book, and some mystery elements. And they're the films I really love. And two films that inspired me and have always lived with me are Don't Look Now by Nick Roeg,
Yes.
and The Vanishing by George Sluizer. And both those films have resonances in the Bay of Silence, because Don't Look Now is about what happens to a couple after the death of a child that they have such trouble dealing with, and the guilt. The Vanishing is the story of a man searching for his lost fiancée and what happens there, and how far down the rabbit hole he's prepared to go to find out the truth. And the Bay of Silence, in a way, has both those elements. And it also has a feel to it that is a little bit throwback, which is what I really love about those films. You know, those films are 70s and 80s movies. And I do think that period was, you know, in a way, the golden age of movie making, and right up to the 90s, I think, because we didn't have so many visual effects that we could rely on. Films were more character driven. We weren't into big spectacles with Marvel comics that we knew that we could sell around the world, that were easy to translate so they would get the big global audience. We wanted and were interested in stories that were about human beings. And that was the story I wanted to tell. And I knew it would be tough. I don't tick any boxes in that, you know, I'm a woman of a certain age. I'd never produced before. I wasn't intending to direct it because quite often they would like you as a first time writer director. For some reason, I wanted someone else to direct it, and I did want a woman director. There were loads of parameters that I had. I was, you know, it's just like, you know, and I thought, well, I better do this boots up, learn from the ground up. Yes, I'm fortunate that I know people, but often knowing people can even be more of a barrier because you don't really want to ask those people to help. The people I knew were people who were so up there in their journey, that you didn't really want to say, hey, you know what, I'm thinking of this. So I just kept my head you know, under the radar. And I just thought, well, I'll just try this on my own. So I did a business plan, and obviously I wrote it, and I went around and I met sales agents, and I went to the film markets, and I did producer courses, and I wrote letters. And in between, of course, I was acting, and sometimes I would have time off, of course, in hotel rooms in between acting jobs. So I was able to push, you know, my, you know, writing and producing ideas up the hill. And slowly it got to a place where I was able to get a bit noisier about it and send it out to actors and ask them if they were interested. And it started coming together. I started packaging it. I started realizing that how to market it. And one of the ways to do that is by making sure that you have a fairly tight finance plan and budget. And I realized going into those meetings with very bored sales agents at Cannes or at the EFM or at the AFM that if you know, they'd say, oh, tell me what the story's about, in that sort of rather tired voice. And I'd lean forward and I'd start telling them the finance plan. I'd say, well, I've got 30% investment from here and 30% soft money and tax credits and grants from there, and 30%. And then suddenly their ears pricked up and they looked at me as if, you know, hallelujah, you know, here is someone who actually talks our language. And that was a real revelation to me. And I realized I needed to put the creative and the fiscal together as a filmmaker. And lots of lovely serendipitous stories. My husband is Terry Gilliam cinematographer, and he was making Don Quixote, finally after 20 years, the second one, you know, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote with Terry Gilliam. And he said to me, Olga Kurilenko is a lovely actress. Why don't you send her the script? And I said, wow, yeah, what a great idea. So we slipped her the script and she read it and she said, I love this and I would be really interested. And I was in Cannes and I saw The Square. And I saw Claes Bang in the Square and I thought, there's my William. Because I didn't really want a very British William, even though it's a British movie. because the problem with British actors is we are so class oriented. It's very hard to find a classless actor. And the great thing about a Danish actor who speaks excellent English like he does, or an Irish or a Scottish to a certain extent, is that they're slightly classless. English actors aren't. They're either posh or they're working class or they're this. We have. I don't know if you have it in Germany, but we're so stratified with our class system that we just place people in boxes by their voices, how they sound. There are so few British actors who are available, who are also bankable, because they're also busy. So you spend your life talking to agents and saying, oh, well, could you tell me about so-and-so's, no, sorry, booked up till, 2021. So you go, okay, well, I'll cross you and McGregor out. And the great thing is that Claes was just, as he'll say it himself, coming into the international eye. And, huge success in Cannes, but the Americans hadn't quite cottoned on to him. And his agent, he had a British agent who I happen to know, lovely guy called Simon Sharkey, whose father had been my agent early on. And Simon also actually was a very good writer, and I'd been in a TV show he did. My casting agent said, well, just ring Simon up and see, I said, golly, okay. So I rang Simon up and I said, is Claes Bang available? Do you think he'd be remotely interested in reading this? And he said, well, I'll read it first. And he read it. And he said, yes, actually, Claes might find this interesting. And he reads everything. So he sent it off to him. And Claes was on his way to Toronto to promote the square at TIFF. So I was on my way to Toronto as well to have yet another conversation with my sales agents about this film. So I arranged to see him there, and we had such a lovely kind of quick, brief cup of tea. And he said, I love this. It's great. So, if you want me on board, I'd love to do this. I want to do an English-speaking film. And so I then had Claes and Olga, and of course I had Brian, who is a little bit of a actor magnet anyway. And Brian I've known since 1985 when we worked together at the Royal Shakespeare Company in Miss Alliance, where he played my dad, and he's been a family friend ever since. And Brian was my secret weapon, because everyone wants to work with Brian Cox because he's the actor's actor. So when I told Olga and Claes that Brian was probably going to do it, they were like, oh, you're kidding me. Okay, well, we're on. And fortunately, Brian was so generous, and he had a little bit of time in between Succession, because that was about to start series 2. And Brian never stops as an actor anyway. I mean, he's always busy. And he managed to fit me in. He came in, he did his 9 days. And it was just wonderful, because he was the perfect actor for that role as well, because with Brian, he's never been identified as one kind of character. He is, as he says, a moving target. So you never know if he's a bad guy or a good guy. So he'll either be in a Marvel movie, or he'll be a hero in this, or he'll be a bad guy in something. And of course, everyone sees him as Logan Roy, and of course he's a bit of a baddie. What's also wonderful is with 2 Emmy, the Emmy nomination and the Emmy win and the Golden Globe and everything, is that when the movie was coming out, and with Claes having done Dracula and now doing Northman, the interest in this little movie is greater, which is lovely. And of course, Olga, everybody adores, and she's so good in her French films as well. And people forget she's not just a Bond girl. She has, worked with extraordinary directors. Terrence Malick, Into the Wonder, Terry Gilliam. She's big French star and makes also, very deep art movies. She's a consummate actress. And so it's just wonderful to have someone of her caliber
Yeah.
playing this part who is so naturally beautiful that she doesn't need to wear any makeup. And she has no vanity, Olga, which, for a woman who's an ex-Victoria's Secret model is just wonderful. She really doesn't care. So I've been on movies where, oh my God, the amount of time that someone is in makeup is ridiculous, and you think, will we ever get them out? And with Olga, she's just always there. And her hair was rarely brushed because that was the character she was playing. She was playing an artist. And she wasn't wearing designer clothes. We had these sort of throwback clothes that were really a bit kind of odd, almost sort of secondhand, which she chose herself. She said, I think this is what she wears. And, but, she and Clace and Brian, all three of them have this archetypal Hollywood movie star look.